Welcome to the Village Board meeting for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, October 24. As has been the case for a while and the foreseeable future, you can join us here at 80 Wheeler Avenue if you wish to attend, but you can also pick up a Zoom link at pleasantville-ny.gov to watch or participate via Zoom. And within a few days, the recording of our Zoom meeting will be up at pctv76.org, where you can see recent and past meetings. Our next regular meeting is the second Monday of November, which is Monday, November 14th. Work session at 7 p.m., regular session at 8 p.m. I had a couple of announcements to make, including some about timely events. But the first and perhaps happiest report of all is that the sawmill is open in both directions. A long haul for everybody, certainly everybody who's at the sawmill, a particularly long haul for residents who live near the work, which was noisy and loud and never ending for such a long period of time. So both sides open, both sides 2 lanes, still work going on elsewhere in the sawmill, but blessedly you can get through Pleasantville on the sawmill as usual and on the nice new smooth asphalt. It's going to be interesting to see, and we are watching carefully to see what impact this has on the traffic snarls that we have encountered here in the Village of Pleasantville. Certainly some component of all of that has been related to people detouring to get away from the single lane on the sawmill. And hopefully we will see some relief. That clearly isn't the only contributor to what's going on, but one piece of it. So keep an eye out for that. I wanted to point out a couple of big events coming along. Halloween weekend is coming up. We have the Candy Crawl coming up. David Vinjamori, trustee Vinjamori, is with us remotely. You want to make your Candy Crawl pitch, David?
Absolutely. We'll be doing the 3rd annual Candy Crawl. This is going to be this coming Sunday, October 30th from 4 to 6 p.m. The routes, we're sending them out to you, and they will be posted on social media as well. You can get an approximate idea of when we'll get to you based on how far into the route it is. In addition, I will put out probably through the village and social media my cell phone number. So if your children somehow missed the honking of the fire truck or whatever, at 6 o'clock, we'll try to come to whoever's house we missed. I'll be joined by Michael Peppard, by Aaron Ballard, the new school board member, and Joanna Von Trees from PCTV, and as well as the Pleasantville Volunteer Fire Department and the Volunteer Ambulance Corps. So we're excited to do this. If you are able to donate candy, Eric, how are we doing in donations?
Pretty good. It's coming in.
Yeah, so keep donating.
Thank you.
Like 8 million calories? How many?
Oh no, just pieces of candy to count, not the calories. That'd be depressing.
So keep donating. The only other thing to say is when we do come by, make sure that you keep your kids on your lawn so that nobody is jumping into the street, but we haven't had any problems in the past year. So we're looking forward to it.
Thank you for that, David, and thank you for the work in spearheading that venture. So that takes place on the 30th, Sunday the 30th from 4 to 6. Got that right, David? Yes? Okay.
Yes, sorry.
The same day, earlier in the day, is our annual Ragamuffin Parade. That has historically happened on Saturday. We have switched it to Sunday in order to create more space down at Memorial Plaza, both for the farm market on Saturday and for the Ragamuffin Parade when it gets down to Memorial Plaza on Sunday. Farm market, as you likely know, has moved to the other end of Memorial Plaza because of the changes we're making at the north end, and so that got complicated. So Ragamuffin Parade, same great parade as always, line up at BRS around noontime. Parade set to begin around 12:30. Middle school band lined up to lead us down Bedford Road in a parade of goblins and Harry Potters and Elvis Presleys.
I'll note I've heard from a couple of the churches on Bedford that they're happy with the change to Sunday because they can kind of spill out after services and line the lawn, and
All right, well, that's a great thing.
so that's a nice unintended consequence
Yeah.
of the change.
Let me also announce that Veterans Day is coming up. That is on Friday, November 11th, the 11th day of the 11th month at the 11th hour. So we're working now to put together plans for a small ceremony that will take place, I think, at the gazebo, as we have often done it, on Friday, November 11 at 11 a.m. Assisting us in that venture, the veterans from the French-Nickel American Legion Post. A number of us were able to attend a joint meeting with the town of Mount Pleasant regarding the library master plan. David has been our liaison to the Mount Pleasant Library and also a key player in this master plan, since libraries are part of his professional bailiwick. You want to give an update on that, David?
Sure. We, the village and the town jointly fund the library, about 2/3, 1/3. And we work together under an intermunicipal agreement. This is for the Mount Pleasant Public Library, the main branch in the village, and the branch near the town pool in Valhalla. And a number of years ago, I want to say, 5 years ago? No, 4 years ago, we discovered there was asbestos in the library, and that the abatement of the asbestos was over $2 million.
Discovery was not that it was escaping, but that it existed contained
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, it's a problem because if they want to run a Cat5 cable or change a light bulb or anything like that, it's extremely expensive. They have to bring in environmental consultants and do remediation and all that. It's so the library is, needs to be renovated just for that reason. The problem is that at the time we initially looked at this, we really couldn't do anything beyond that because of the library's resources and our financial condition between the village and the town. Now, however, the library has gotten some significant grants, bequests, and can fund something over $5 million of what will be a possibly $10.5 million project, depending upon what exactly we do. But I would urge everyone to, can we put this up on our website now, Eric?
It's up now on the Mount Pleasant Library website, so maybe that's the best place to send folks.
Yeah, let's get it, but let's get it on our website as well, so we can get it out as many places as
To do
possible.
it, wouldn't you say, so that if the source document changes, it will automatically happen. .org is
yeah.
posted.
Yeah, that source document is not going to change. That's the end of the master plan. So, and for some months we won't have anything new. So, I'd say take a look at it. It is really pretty dramatic. The improvement. It will add meeting space and study space. It will provide a place for young adults. It improves the children's area. In the current plan, it creates an amphitheater, an outdoor amphitheater, as well as outdoor program space that is safer for children than just being on the front lawn. So I think there's a lot. It's a very impressive piece of work. As Peter said, my entire day job is designing public libraries. So I'm very excited by the work that the team created, and that the architect Henry Meyerberg, has put together for this, and it really requires the support of the village as well as the town. And there's some concern among town board members about the funding level. So it'll be important for everybody for us to hear from you about where this fits in your scheme of priorities. But please take a look. There's some great 3D renderings. You can get an idea what this will look like.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I want to say that, we met over at Mount Pleasant Town Hall and it was the first time both boards had the presentation from the folks at the library. Kudos to John Fearon, the library director, to the library board, to David, to everybody who's on the team, and kudos in particular to the architects, who I think have really done an interesting job. A really pretty radical improvement in the library that doesn't change the outside at all. So, or in very modest ways. So, it's not clear at the moment that the funds are in place to make this happen, but certainly some concerns on both sides about how to make this happen. But I do think I'm optimistic that there will be a way forward, as David already indicated. So, MountPleasantLibrary.org, you can take a look at that right now. Manville Road project is rolling. Eric, quick update.
Sure, they're finishing up work right now between Wheeler and Tompkins. They're gonna bounce to that other corner on Tompkins and Manville, basically just doing a pedestrian ramp and curb and sidewalk there. They're gonna then shift down to between Vanderbilt and Grant Street and do that stretch of sidewalk that also requires a fire hydrant replacement. And then from there, they're going to see where they end up. Obviously, weather dependent, they'll have a winter shutdown probably beginning of December, mid-December, depending on the weather. So we're going to be taking it week by week, but that's the
Okay, so and certainly I think it's looking great on this side. It's a long time coming, and in a lot of people's way while we do it, but it's a good result. So, all right, a couple of very quick announcements. Speaking for myself, but also on behalf of the county, I very much encourage folks to get both the flu vaccine and the COVID bivalent booster. There are now county clinics where you can get it, but you can also get it at most pharmacies. The numbers we've seen for the last week suggest that COVID is ramping up, and perhaps ramping up with a different variant that we haven't yet seen. So it's not gone. The best thing you can do is stay up to date with boosters, and while you're at it, get the flu vaccine, so we don't add that to the problems we already have with COVID. So, quick report, our DPW folks are going to be doing hydrant flushing, which is a once-a-year venture where we have to open all the hydrants and let them run, clear them out of any sludge and sediment, make sure they work properly. That causes a flood of water down the gutter and into the storm drains. So we do it in the middle of the night. So that starts today and will end October 28th. It's going to be done between midnight and 7 a.m. So if you hear guys in front of your house or nearby creating a flood of water down the curb, it's because we're doing hydrant flushing. If you want to pay attention to when your street might be done, you can go to pleasantville-ny.gov. The hydrant flushing announcement on the homepage also includes a rough schedule. Recognize that that's a little bit in flux depending on how the work goes. Likewise, leaf pickup has already begun, and it will continue through December 10 or the first snow, whichever is sooner. And then the last in this interminable run of announcements was expanded hours for food scrap. You want to?
Yeah, so we have a food scrap program. Most of you are probably familiar already. Up until now, it was available for drop off on Saturdays during the hours when the recycling center is open, and we've expanded it now to Thursdays as well, from 9 to 3, and up until I think around Thanksgiving. There's also an early drop off on Saturdays as well, starting at 6. Is that right? Yeah. So we've heard feedback that Saturday is not always a convenient time for people. I'm one of those people, for it's not always convenient. So we're expanding it to one day, and if it works well, we hope to expand it even further in the future.
So thank you for that, and thank you to Anthony Carr, our new superintendent of public works, and Mike Ferguson, the foreman, and all the folks down there who have been flexible in trying to find out ways to keep all this stuff happening, improve the service.
Yeah, very cooperative, and yeah.
All right, any other announcements? As part of our police reform process of a year and a half ago, we began not only a weekly update from the police chief of blotter entries, but also a quarterly presentation about what has been going on in the world of the Pleasantville Police Department. And I welcome Police Chief Eric Prutzner to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, trustees, Mr. Morris, how are you? So good evening. Today, we're going to be talking about the third quarter, July, August, September of this year. I know there are a number of updates and things like that that I would like to touch on. So I'm going to probably not spend too much time on the statistics and the data. The information is there. Obviously, any questions, you yourselves or members of the public are always free to ask me any follow-up questions, emails, phone calls.
No, it's on the agenda.
So please feel free to follow up. I will, I'm not going to give anything any short shrift, but I would like to, I obviously recognize that time is of the essence. So I will do my best to keep things moving.
I will share your slides and you'll tell me when to advance. Okay. I achieved it. Looks like I have.
Great. So we begin as we do every quarter with just a brief rundown of some of the different calls that we've gone on. And then next to that call we saw in the previous quarter, just to give an idea of the activity level. Our calls for service and blotter entries were down a little bit, as we would expect some of the summer months. Not a significant, really, when you look at the numbers, there's really not significant changes from last quarter to this quarter. So we can move on to the next. We see a little change again. You see sort of the numbers are staying relatively close to the same in all these categories: blotters, patrol arrests, things like that. Next, please. So I do want to highlight some of our community policing initiatives that we've been able to undertake. Some of these are in direct result of the goals and things that we had discussed previously. We have now instituted walking posts Monday through Friday on both the day tour, the 8 to 4 tour, and the 4 to 12 tour. So that would be Wheeler Avenue, Washington Avenue. We allow officers to move freely as long as they can respond back to the car to respond to a call. But we, enjoy, especially before the weather starts to get too cold, before people don't really want to spend time outside, giving the officers the opportunity to meet people and have those build those relationships and have those conversations. Next, please. So regional school safety symposiums, that's a county initiative that's begun. It's a partnership between police departments, local municipalities, and schools and service providers to sort of bring everyone into the room. Obviously, there is a great nexus to safety, but we've also heard from Hope Not Handcuffs, which, as you recall, is our pre-arrest diversion opioid initiative that has obviously a nexus to the schools. So these symposiums are held both for administrators to kind of talk about sort of the big picture policies and things like that, things that we can all do in conjunction with each other, sharing that space with school administrators, and then also for our community resource officers who work within the community, within the schools, to sort of partner with the schools at more the granular level. So it's a complete top to bottom sort of approach to school safety. Next, please. In addition, Detective Charlie had the opportunity to go to tutor time, speak to the students there, talk to them about stranger danger. Obviously, we do our best. We have a couple new, hopefully in the next quarterly report, we'll talk about some new initiatives where we're out directly talking to the students at different levels. We're hopeful that we're going to have a new pathway into being in front of those students. So we do move up and down within the public school system, but also when we have the opportunity, whether it's one of the preschools or some of the Cub Scouts, we also like to take those opportunities to talk about safety. We'll do some Halloween safety presentations and opportunities with the kids. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us to get in front of those kids as early as possible and really cement that positive relationship that we try to build. Next. This photo, I did have a video, but you know, it's a bit longer in time. So this is Officer Casal. Officer Casal had the honor and privilege of singing the national anthem at the 9/11 Memorial in the town of Mount Pleasant this year. Dave has done a great job with this and for a number of different organizations. Dave has quite a bit of musical ability, and it's always great when he can represent the department as well as you know, sort of show a different side of his abilities out there. So we thank Dave for that. We also thank the folks in Mount Pleasant for giving us that opportunity to have Dave go over and do that.
Yankee Stadium, City Field.
It's coming, I'm sure. So some of the calls of note, if you've been paying attention to the police blotter, you've probably seen a number of calls regarding sick raccoons. We're up to about 24 at this point, although we've had some since the presentation was put together. We've had more calls come in. We've been liaisoning with the Department of Environmental Conservation, and their best guess is not rabies, in fact, but distemper. Distemper is not transmittable to humans, but it does in animals that it affects. It does give off some of the same symptoms as an animal that's sick with rabies. Those animals are destroyed. We've sent a number of them to the DEC, and we're waiting on confirmation that that is correct. But between the scope, the number of cases, the geographic layout of how it's gone, all of the information currently points to an outbreak of distemper somewhere in our community. So,
And that would be a threat to people's pets.
would still be a threat potentially to pets. You know, at this point now, it's remained mostly with raccoons. We have had some reports of injured animals that we were not able to that were able to escape. They ran off into the woods. So we don't know if it's spread outside of the raccoon population at this point, but obviously, you know, we always caution people to give wild animals a wide berth. And especially with pets, and this sort of situation that holds doubly true. Next, please. So, a couple other calls worth discussing. One of the big problems that we have currently now that we see a lot countywide, statewide, is a proliferation of forged license plates. Part of that, well, I don't want to characterize why particularly it's happening, but as we continue to have success within the county with our network of license plate readers, the market for false license plates to not be tracked as you move around is high. So we had one person was pulled over. It's a felony to have a false license plate on your car, so they were arrested for that and summons for a number of other violations. So that was good basing, you know, coming off of a routine traffic stop. You know, it's not that the officer knew that the plate was fictitious until such time as he ran it and found out that information. So a nice piece of police work there. Next, please. All right, so this case is particularly noteworthy for us. So we had a mother who was traveling. She was away from home. She has an adult daughter who lives at home. The adult daughter made some statements to her. She was concerned about self-harm. And I think what's notable about this particular case is the partnership that went into the response. You know, not too long ago, we would have maybe handled this case a little bit differently, but between rising awareness of mental health issues and the best way to handle them, cooperation that we now share with mental health providers, and most notably the availability of the mobile crisis response team that the county started not too long ago, we were able to take a very hands-off approach. This woman was not comfortable speaking to a police officer. Were we not to have those resources available, we would have probably needed to ensure her safety in a way much differently than we were able to do this time. So there was a good amount of time that was spent on this call. There was a good amount of manpower that was spent on this call, but at the end, we were able to walk away from it knowing that she had a good safety plan in place. The right resources were brought to bear, and it's very much a success story for sort of the new paradigm that we follow when it comes to mental health calls in police work.
Chief, that's great news. And one of the questions about the mobile crisis response teams when they were getting started was the dispatch time. Do you feel that went well in this case, coming from White Plains or wherever.
Absolutely, yeah, our catchment area is Ossining, so
Okay.
they're co-located in the Ossining Police Department, but if you ever tried to get between here and Ossining, on an afternoon, sometimes we do anticipate that it's a 20-minute response time. In this case, it worked out great. We got them on the phone immediately and they were available to come right over. You know, there's always also the possibility they could be on another call or doing something else. Their response time was excellent. And we were able to just sort of hold the fort and make sure that she was physically safe until such time as they could come. We were able to reach out to her mother and get her therapist's information. So there was a number of resources that were brought to bear, but having that mobile crisis response team, having them be able to sort of have an official capacity by which we could approach without, you know, that police response was, I think it worked out very well. The response time was great.
And
Great.
kudos to the Latimer administration for getting that system in place
Yes,
and standing that up countywide. It obviously isn't everything everyone would wish, but it's a massive step forward.
and the fact is, from in talking to my colleagues in other jurisdictions, you know, the communities, you know, obviously everybody sort of comes to new ideas and new paradigms sort of at their own pace, but the communities that have really embraced it have reported absolutely nothing but success with it. There, you know, it's to have that ability to have someone to call really is it's a wonderful resource to have. Absolutely.
Good.
So again, something that's not necessarily completely unusual, but I thought it was worth highlighting. We had two cases that came in which people reported. One was that some property had been stolen, another was some graffiti that had been made. We did our investigation, we located some suspects, and both of them turned out to be younger than 18 years old. And so when this happens, we have, you know, the juvenile justice system is designed to deter youthful, I don't want to use the term youthful offenders, but juveniles who commit crimes, deter them out of the criminal justice system and keep them from that happening. And so Detective Sergeant Garcia did a phenomenal job in keeping the victims in the loop, getting to a point where at the end of this, you know, the people who were responsible didn't necessarily go into the family court system. We were able to do a deterrent interview, get their families involved. Restitution was made. So again, something that we do on a relatively regular basis. We did have two cases right back to back where, like I said, Detective Sergeant Garcia was able to, you know, kind of put a bow on everything very neatly with what we thought was very appropriate restitution being made to the victims of the situations. So again, a nice job there. Again, some data numbers really don't change. You do see a small uptick in our caseload in this quarter. To me, the most significant thing is we were all here when we recently promoted the detective, but for most of the time period of this data, we only had two detectives in the office, and they were responsible for being on call every weekend. You know, usually we divide that up 3 ways. We only divided that up 2 ways. They had a very heavy caseload. Usually our summers, the caseload tends to go down. We've rolled the dice sometimes in the past on when we need to put someone back into that office, thinking that the summer is going to be maybe a little quieter. This summer happened to be particularly busy, and I just want to thank Detective Sergeant Garcia, Detective Charletti for the work that they did. They put a lot of effort into making sure that those cases, you know, receive the attention that they deserve, even though we were down some manpower. So thanks to them on that. Next, okay, so I know one of the issues that comes up on most of these quarterly reports is our overtime, and I'm going to try something here in explaining. I know in the past I've tried to explain. This could be a really bad decision on my part. But I wanted to give the board some of the opportunity. We're going to, basically what happened was when Lieutenant Liswan left and Lieutenant Gilmartin took over, Lieutenant Gilmartin collated the numbers for us for this presentation. And although the totals were the same, the subcategories were much different. And after a couple conversations, we came to realize that in patrol, we might have a number of reasons why we have a shortage in a shift and therefore need to cover it with overtime. But in general, there are certain categories of overtime that simply lead to a deficiency in manpower. So I'm going to try to graphically explain this concept by using our actual schedule, how it's built, how we make it, to give you all an understanding. So in the future, I might not be breaking out things like, this much overtime was created by sick time, this much overtime was created by vacations. I want to just give you an idea of a general sense of what patrol overtime looks like, and then hopefully it's clear going forward. So I'll work through this. I'm going to try to do this quickly and as clearly as possible, but next, if you could.
Oh, you're making me nervous even to go to the. next
I know,
one.
right? Who knows what could be coming up next?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so this is where it all begins. This is our yearly schedule. We issue this schedule before September 1st, so we can begin vacation picks for the following year. On the left, you see A through R. Those are the slots for the officers. Okay, over across the top, you see A through R. Those are the days in our work chart. So 1 is the midnight shift, 2 is the day tour, 3 is the 4 to 12. If you look at Officer A and go across there, so that officer would be working 4 midnight shifts, have 2 days off, work 4 to 12s, 2 days off, 2 day tours, 2 days off, and then start the cycle again. So I included 1 month down at the bottom. You see it's an 18-day work schedule, work chart. And then it just goes through the entire year. So when we issue that schedule for the year, every officer who has a permanent slot in the schedule knows what they're going to work on May 15th, on October 31st, on December 25th, and every day in between. Okay, next, please. So this is just the same exact chart, but I took out everybody except the sergeants. So that's our sergeants. Those are our 5 sergeants positions in the patrol division. If you look, I think in the past, I referred to our schedule as a waterfall or a cascade. This kind of gives you the impact of that. So if you see Sergeant A there on top, works his 4 midnight shifts. And then after that, Sergeant E comes in, and on that E day, we don't refer to them by the letters of the alphabet. That's just mainly for this schedule. But on day, what would be E day, Sergeant E comes in and starts his midnight shifts. So you see how that goes? So that, and in between, each officer is coming on the shift or going off the shift intermittently. You're working
So
your 4
there's a
shifts. you go.
supervisor on every shift.
So there is a supervisor. It's starting with the yearly schedule. There is a supervisor on every shift. Okay, next. So this is what our yearly schedule looked like as we issued it at the beginning of this year, because instead of 18 officers in patrol, we had 15. So you see there's certain breaks where the schedule is not filled. I can say in the past, in the department, we have had as many as 20 officers in patrol at one time. So we had multiple officers in each spot. And all that does is just create more people on the shift, right? So, Mr. Mayor, would you mind going back 2 slides to the full complete schedule? So were we to have a complete schedule with no time taken and no accrued time, no anything, we would have 4 people on every shift. Our minimum manpower is 3. So we would have every spot filled. Somebody would be working, Officer A would be on the A day. Officer A is working his first midnight shift. B and C are off. D, E, F, and G are all working the day shift. I'm working down in column A there. H and I are off. J, K, L, and M are on I guess it's a 4 to 12. And then N and O off. P, Q, R, and A are on the midnight shift. Clear so far? So if all those slots are filled, we have 4 people on every shift throughout the entire work period.
And the beautiful color diagonals are preserved.
I don't want to say who designed it with the colors in it, but let's just say I'm pretty good with Excel. So, okay, so we can go back to 2 slots ahead. All right, so again, we didn't have 18 officers to work the patrol shift this year. We had 15. So we already are starting off officers E, F, and G. If you look, let's go with day G. So E, F, and G, already we have 3 officers on that shift. And this is all before any sort of time or leave is taken. Officer G, so you have 3, E, F, and G work together. Now, they won't necessarily be the only person. We don't have squads, because if you notice, say, day C, it's officers A, B, and C are working, but if you then go day D, it goes to B, See if I get this right. Yeah, it's hard for me to see it, but the breaks sort of give you thank you, give it a visual look like there's some sort of squad setup. E, F, and G don't always work together, right? On the D day, G, I, and J are all working toward 2. See that?
Got it.
Okay, all right. This is where I start to regret, maybe I shouldn't have done
Right.
this, but here we go. We're moving on.
Even if we don't get it, we believe you.
So far, so good. All right. So now, once we have the yearly schedule set up and issued, we then issue the monthly schedule 1 week before the month begins. So before February, 1 week on January 23rd, we issue the February schedule for the month. If you want to go to the next slide. The monthly schedule looks like this, okay? And it basically takes the raw data from the previous one, but now we start to include vacation picks, if we have any long-term injuries, if we have any type of leave time coming that we are aware of, we take that out, and those highlighted officers are what we call vacation relief. So they do not get they get their yearly schedule, but it's not set in stone. Those 4 officers get their schedule only a week before the month begins, because we have the flexibility to move them. So if, for instance, Officer K were to go on vacation, we wouldn't necessarily probably have to move anyone into that slot because they're already working 4-man tours already. Thank you. Officer K doesn't have anybody it doesn't have any 3-man tours. But if Officer F were to go on vacation, then all of a sudden, let's say he took that first week he took days, he took the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th on vacation. The 6th, 7th, and 8th, well, all the days actually are going to be less than 3 officers, and we'll have to move a vacation relief officer into that spot. So the reason I bring this up is because although it looks full at this time, once we start pulling out vacations, we have to start moving people around and making choices. The reason, again, I say this is because what we found was Lieutenant Liswan was looking at the days and determining, okay, whatever the last person was who went out of the schedule, that would be the reason for the overtime that we would cite in the data that I was presenting to you. What it really comes down to is, with all the moving parts and and believe me, it can take hours to come up with a monthly schedule that reduces overtime, considers all the needs of the department and everything that we need to do. I wanted to make it as clear as possible moving forward that maybe it's because someone's on vacation, maybe it's because someone is out on a maternity leave, maybe it's because someone is out taking a personal day. But in the end, it comes down to, if we had a full complement of officers, the overtime would look different. So it's, again, what all of this is to say, I'm going to be providing, if it's all right with the board, I'd like to start providing our patrol overtime just as this is, I'm going to call it tour coverage, which is a term I've used previously differently. It had a different meaning before, but now it's going to include any kind of leave or for any reason an officer is not here working the shift, we're going to call that tour coverage. That makes sense. And like I said, we can go back. Training goes into this as well. Like I said, if we know someone is injured on or off duty and they're going to be out for a while, any type of, someone can't come for work, somebody has jury duty, there are any bereavement leave.
Right. All
So,
these pieces.
yeah, it all goes in together. All right. So are there any questions on that? All right. I think I've beaten this enough. I don't have to go in. That was just one day that I picked out to sort of give you an idea of the clarity of
The
sort of,
dynamics of.
how many people are working each shift. So our patrol.
This was a warm up to why.
Right. I've now completely confused you, so I'll just blow right through the rest.
You won't notice this one.
Yeah. So from year to year, we did see an increase. Last year, Q3, we had some extra officers had already been hired prior to some people departing. So we were flush. We had done some hiring in anticipation of future losses. And so we definitely saw the benefit of that in Q3. Q3 of this year, we have you know, the numbers have changed. Some of those people have retired, as we've talked about, sort of a lot of the overtime that's gone on. Next, and then this is the last 5 quarters of overtime, just to give you an idea. So the numbers are still slightly exaggerated, but they are for reasons that we
And this also includes special events and all of that.
this includes absolutely everything that's in there. So the next slide should be a graphic design of that. You'll see a couple things. Our tour coverage and our special events basically stayed even from last quarter, from quarter 2 to quarter 3. Obviously, quarter 3 of last year, there were no special events. Our school guard overtime dropped significantly. And we'll talk about that in just a minute.
Sorry, in my effort to expand this. Doesn't stay. Okay,
So yeah, you see, you know, relatively flat numbers when it comes to our tour coverage and our special events. School card coverage dropped significantly. We'll talk about that in just 1 second. And then the last big change was our training overtime. Most of our training overtime comes from our firearms qualification. Everyone in the department goes to the range and qualifies. We have our instructors come in to do that, so that becomes a significant overtime expenditure that we budget for and anticipate every year, but it happens in the spring, it happens in the fall. So we'll this year it's getting pushed off a little bit because our instructors were doing some training. We'll be doing that in November. Normally we would do it September, October. But we'll see that training number sort of bounce up and down through the course of business. All right. Personnel and staffing. We spoke about it at the last promotion ceremony. All of the turnover that's happening, we're not done. We have 2 sergeants, Detective Sergeant Garcia and Sergeant Woods, who have both expressed their intention to retire. They would expect their last days to be before the end of this calendar year. We will be looking at how to fill those spots, and then we will be looking at how to fill those promotional positions moving forward. It is a constant conversation between us inside the office with Mr. Morrissey and myself, as far as how best to meet the needs of the community and the department going forward with promotions and hires. So we will keep you in the loop as far as that continues. Just looking backwards, we were all here when Officer Alonso was hired in early July, and Detective Smith was promoted. We have actually, and I know I've been here many times talking about our crossing guards, we actually were able to hire 3 new crossing guards this quarter. So we saw our crossing guard numbers went down. Those are the 3 posts. Romer Avenue from the parking lot from the high school, the middle school parking lot exit. Ashland Avenue, the back lot there, both have 2 brand new guards. We have a 3rd guard who is currently working the fill-in. He's not fully available yet, but he's coming in when he is. Where at the same time, a couple guards have expressed some concern about maybe being able to take a step back. So, Sergeant Burwa has taken over the role of crossing guard coordinator. It is something that you literally have to put your hand on every single day. It's just a constant struggle to make sure that we have guards on every post. As we've talked about before, if we don't have a guard, we do have a fill-in guard who can come in as needed. They're obviously not available every day, but they come in oftentimes when we call them. After that, it goes to our community service worker, and then after that, it goes to the police officers to come in and work those posts on all the time. So we try to avoid that, obviously, for financial reasons, to the best of our ability. So we're very encouraged that we have gotten crossing guards to come out. I think, I was here when Mike was talking about, cautiously optimistic about staffing and hiring, and we're finding that as well with our crossing guards. So next I think there's one more. Is there one more slide? Skip one.
Did I skip one?
I think, there you go. So in July, the county offered the community service worker exam. We participated in that. We're hoping to get those results hopefully within the next few weeks. That
That's
will give
the
us
parking enforcement officer.
that. Yes, our
Also
community
serving in
service
some other roles.
Yes, our community service worker serves as our parking enforcement officer and then has also the ability to do other tasks by civil service rules. So it's been a good fit for us hiring under that characterization rather than just a straight parking enforcement officer. When we get those results, we're hopeful and we're expecting that our currently appointed community service worker who we hired when there was no exam will be reachable and be able to be retained. Sarah's doing a great job for us and we'd love to be able to keep her on. We expect that that's going to be what's going to happen. And then it's going to also give us the opportunity to fill in the position. We lost our other community service worker in July to another opportunity. So we're hopeful that we should be back to a full complement of parking enforcement community service workers, hopefully within the next few weeks. Great training. So we did a lot of training over the summer. Detective Charletti, we have a good relationship with the State Juvenile Officers Association, and we send people to their conference. It's an opportunity statewide for networking and training. Detective Charletti attended this year. Sometimes we'll send 2 officers depending on the need. He did the workshops, which were any number of different training opportunities that came in. One of which was called Perspective of an Addict, Changing the Narrative. It spoke a lot to sort of the work that we're trying to do with our pre-arrest initiative, but spoke a little bit more on the operational level and really worked on the impact that officers can directly have on the lives of people struggling with addiction, through compassion, through empathy, through not just a pre-arrest diversion model, but sort of a holistic approach to wellness. So we were encouraged that he was able to participate in that. Another number of other classes were regards to school safety, relationship building, all sorts of things that go on that our youth officer needs to be strong in. Officer Charles attended the crisis intervention class. We've made a commitment to sending officers for that training. That's a 40-hour training. So it's obviously a big commitment. I thank the board for your support in sending our officers. It is some of the most powerful and impactful training that our officers go through. Nobody's ever walked away from that 40 hours and thought that wasn't worth my time. Really gives you a direct line and a direct insight into what people with mental illness are struggling with and how best we can help them in our communities. Sergeant Zane attended the firearms instructor school. Officer Casal attended an officer wellness training. Officer Casal is sort of taking the lead on our officer wellness, whether it's responding after a traumatic or a stressful incident to just general overall health and well-being. We may end up in the future looking for someone to come and supplement him, so we don't put too many different responsibilities on him. We don't want him to wear every hat that we can find for him, but he does a phenomenal job, especially when it comes to these types of situations. His empathy and his emotional intelligence are extremely high, so he's a perfect fit for that. And Sergeant Kakamis attended our county's 911 diversion training. 911 diversion, again, in cooperation with the Mobile Crisis Response Team, part of Project Alliance from the county, from county executive's office, really re-looking at police response. The way it goes is the call comes in. If there's really no reason for an officer to be there, that 911 call can be diverted to a trained helpline operator. If the officer needs to respond, then we have the Mobile Crisis Response Team to come with us and provide their resources as well. So it's sort of a two-pronged approach to taking officers from the front lines of being there for a mental health call when there are people who do it better than much better than we do. So next. All right, our areas of concern coming up for this quarter. Obviously, it's 2 ongoing countywide concerns that we have seen here in the village. We ask people for their vigilance, for their concern for their neighbors. Porch pirates, obviously, as the holiday season starts and more packages start getting delivered and left on people's porches, it's fodder for people to come by and swipe them. So we see that countywide, statewide, nationally, this is an ongoing problem. We don't expect it to go away anytime soon. In addition, catalytic converters underneath cars are extremely valuable on the black market. and removing them is a very simple process with some power tools. Now, as we get into the colder months and people tend to button up their houses, it's going to be more and more difficult for us to be aware of this. But we have had a couple occasions where multiple catalytic converters were stolen in the night, either from our own, from here in Pleasantville, or potentially from Mount Pleasant or surrounding areas. So we'll continue to work with the county and their partner with them. They have our intelligence work really goes through the county police and the real-time crime center. So we'll continue to partner with them to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep people safe. But it really does, I wish I could tell people, if you just park your car this way, or if you just do this, you won't be at risk for this. But unfortunately, it's a very difficult thing to prevent. But vigilance is always a good way to go. All right, so just wanted to touch on my last section here tonight is to touch on. We have a number of projects going on, a number of improvements in the police department that I wanted to sort of give the board an update on, so that sort of where we are in the process. And some of these things have moved along at a pretty rapid pace. Some of them we're a little bit disappointed in. So part of the police reform process was New York State accreditation. We filed for accreditation with New York State 5 months ago. We have not heard back. So although we don't know this for sure, it seems like a very long time to wait for an accreditation response. Good news, bad news. Bad news is we would love to have guidance from the state exactly specifically what we're supposed to do. The good news is we do have partners, and I have colleagues who've gone through this process before, and we have been working on the updating of the policies and procedures, which is step one in doing this. So we have the state manual, the accreditation standards that we need to follow, and we're starting to move that forward. For the next quarterly meeting, it is my goal, and I might make it one of my yearly goals for going forward, sort of integrate, is to come up with an accreditation calendar and sort of let the community know, like, these are the policies that we're potentially going to be working on. This is the time frame that that people can expect. It is a fluid situation. Some of these policies are very quick and easy to update. Some of them take a great deal. You revise one policy and then something changes and you have to go back and revise it again. But we are continuing to move forward on the process. We are continuing to utilize our Power DMS, which was the platform that we integrated in order to facilitate the move to accreditation. So we are, like I said, I wish we were farther along and had a little bit more partnership on the part of the accreditation board at the state, but we are definitely not frozen in place awaiting for their partnership on this. Next. So again, part of police reform was to review and look into the feasibility of body-worn cameras. The good news is that just recently, just within the last few weeks, DCJS has made us aware of some grant funding that is available. We have some work to do internally to qualify for that, but they have said that I don't want to call it first priority, but this grant is primarily tailored towards departments that do not have body-worn cameras at this time, to allow them to have to get started on that. So we're going to file for that funding. We're going to do the things that we need to do. The police reform initiative was to begin to engage our colleagues elsewhere. A lot of that was going to be on the platform that we used, on the type of how we did the data storage, how we did the dissemination, the quest for body cameras, a lot of the administrative things behind it. So we're excited that the decision on which system to use is going to potentially not be something that we really have to consider if we're eligible for a grant. So the grant needs to be in by the beginning of December. And then DCJS has stated that they will let the recipients know that they have been awarded the grants sometime early 2023. Next. So I know it's been a board priority to add electric vehicles to our fleet. We have done that. We have engaged with our village electrician to get the scope of the work and the costs that were available. We have examined state contracts for what is what's out there, what those costs are going to be. At some point in the near future, I will be updating the board with what some of those costs look like. And then I will ask the board for a little bit more direction as far as with some tangible numbers, a little bit more of the direction of exactly where we want to go and how we
So
want to
that-
move forward.
Electrician will examine possibly a charging station in the lot here that.
So he came, he looked at it. A lot of it depends on what type of charger we put in place. The high-speed chargers take a great
Yeah.
deal of power.
Administrator Marcy is now an expert on this, having spent way too many hours of his
Yes.
life.
So, so not to rehash, but you know, the conversation has always been a high-speed charger in that location. He did see some issues with different locations, but also some solutions. Part of the issue and problem is that Con Edison will usually not do any sort of site examination, let you know sort of what the load is or what your concerns are, without having submitted your application. Like they won't give you that information so you can make the decision. You sort of have to apply for it first. He did express. He pointed out a number of different areas where there might be places for concern, such
Alright,
as
so-
transformer locations.
Yeah, we don't have to get into the weeds yet.
Right.
We'll come back to us with.
But like I said, I will be coming to the board shortly with
Yeah.
some ideas about
Okay,
where
great.
to go forward. Our radio communications, if you remember at the budget time, we discussed it as a capital project. We've been invited to participate with the system that the Metro North Police uses. There was an outlay, there was an expense. I can tell you that some of our neighbors have gone in other directions. Some have gone in the same direction. The cost is significant. But a lot of that is based on the particular geography and topography of your area. We did some testing. We did not get the results we expected. We found more dead spots than we were anticipating. So we have looked into not only what system works for us best, but what also is scalable, what gives us the opportunity to cover those dead spots, what allows us to transmit and receive information inside buildings, most notably the schools. The schools have been great partners in trying to work with us to find a solution. We've had a couple different ideas that we thought might enhance our service, and it hasn't come to pass. But we've done some. We're through the testing phase, and we're like I said, at this point now, it really comes down to what system has the best ability to scale and grow and cover the areas that we have of concern. So still on the horizon, but not something that is immediately pressing for you all. And then lastly, our village emergency plans were updated. This is the first thing that I asked Lieutenant Gilmartin to do when he came on board. He did a wonderful job of it. It's been circulated and approved through the fire department and the village, the Pleasantville Ambulance Corps. These plans are in place for natural disasters and other major incidents in which an EOC is opened. And it really lays out, the old plan was primarily contact information for different people. These plans lay out, they follow the ICS model, which is the federally mandated model that we have to follow when it comes to these types of incidents. It names what positions will handle what area of responsibility. And the idea is that were there to be a situation in which an emergency happened, we'd be able to open up this plan and everybody would know specifically who is doing what job and what that job entails. That again will be circulated to the board for your approval in the coming days.
Great. Well, it's timely with the hurricane season upon us. Hopefully we'll have no need.
Yes.
All right, that was great, Chief. Thank you for that. And again, for those who may be interested, that PowerPoint is available at pleasantville-ny.gov for anyone who wishes to pick it up. And I also remind folks that you can also subscribe to the police blotter that the chief issues on a weekly basis if you're interested in knowing what is going on. All right. So I think a lot of you are here for the conversation.
Stop your screen.
Thank you for that. I think a lot of you are here for the outdoor dining discussion. Apologize, we're running a little bit late. We'll try to zip through our resolutions and then get back to that conversation quickly. Before we do that, is there any comment from any member of the public on any subject other than outdoor dining, which we'll move to in the work session? All right. With that, let me share my screen and we will go to the resolution. All right. 304. Paul.
Whereas the replacement of truck number 3 operated by the village's water department was proposed to be replaced in the fiscal year 2023 budget, and whereas the village secured a vehicle purchase proposal, the New York State mini bid process. Now therefore be resolved, the village board of trustees hereby approves the creation of a capital account for the replacement of truck number 3 and authorizes the transfer of $45,000 from the water fund to fund balance in this amount. The vehicle proposals in the attachment of the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this replacing a pickup truck with a van?
Yeah, the pickup truck that was damaged in an accident.
Right.
Been on long term.
All right. all in
Eric, actually, I have a quick question. Eric, are we starting to look at electric options for this type of thing?
Yeah, they didn't have a good electric option for the transit, but we have started to look into electric options with future vehicles.
Okay.
Often encountering a circumstance where these things are very much supply constrained. So, correct. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved 305, Nicole.
Um,
We need to move your seat. You always get that.
yeah. Okay, let me just- Okay, budget transfers of the general fund. $1,149.50 from swim team part-time to parks repairs. $1,246.90 from swim team supplies to parks repairs. $500 from camp supplies to camp part-time. $5,661.25 from camp outside services to camp part-time. $12,623.48 to camp from camp transportation to camp part-time. $5,000 contingency to parks repairs. $3,500 from contingency to outside service. That's a total of $29,681.13. Budget transfer of the water fund, $20,000 from contingency to water distribution outside services. Appropriate fund balance, water fund, $45,000. Transfer to capital for a new water truck, the 223 Ford Transit. Is there more that I can't see?
There's one more. Hold on, let me scroll it.
All right. Increase revenue and expense of the capital fund, the same $45,000. Interfund transfer from water fund for the new water truck.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
David, 306, speaking from the Zoom room.
Resolve the Board of Trustees hereby approves the abstract for payment of claims dated October 24th, 2022 for fiscal year ending 2023, covering check numbers 105-401 to 105-472. From the general fund, $84,015.50. From special purposes, $275. From the water fund, $29,025.59. From the refuse fund, $7,761.06 for a total of $121,077.15.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments, questions on the payment of claims?
That's the lowest this year, right?
Say, I like these little ones. Can you keep that up, Martin?
I will try my hardest.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved, 307, Michael.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes of the regular meeting held on October 13th, 2022, minutes attached.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or corrections to the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Back to you, Paul, 308.
Thank you.
Okay.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the resignation of Kevin Love, Recreation Assistant, Panther Club, effective October 18th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
You suppose inconsistent with being in the NBA?
Nice.
Just kidding. All in favor?
Aye.
309, Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of the following recreation assistant job class code 0269 with an hourly rate of $20 effective October 25th, 2022. Alec Nikna for an hourly rate of $20. For Panther Club, Sydney Dawson, hourly rate of $20, and Francesca Ricci, also an hourly rate of $20.
Is there a second?
Second.
In our earlier work session, Mike Newman and the team at the rec department are working hard to try to expand our staff with the goal, which we're cautiously optimistic of achieving, of expanding to 150 kids from the for Panther Club by January. That requires new staff. Walk one, but game 3, making progress. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. David, 310.
Whereas there's pending before the New York State Supreme Court County of Westchester a tax certiorari proceeding titled Matter of LTR Properties Limited versus Assessor of the Village of Pleasantville et al. And whereas this proceeding contests the real property tax assessment of a parcel bearing the address of 76 to 78 Washington Avenue, which is identified as section 106.6, block 1, lot 47 on the Village of Pleasantville assessment map as established on the Village of Pleasantville 2022 assessment roll. And whereas a proposed settlement has been reached providing for a disposition of the claims asserted in this proceeding, and whereas the Village Board of Trustees has obtained the advice and assistance of its counsel Keenan Bean PC with respect to the proposed settlement and duly considered same, and whereas pursuant to the settlement, the 2022 assessment of the tax parcel involved in this proceeding will be reduced, and whereas a result, a Village of Pleasantville tax reduction will be due in an amount equaling approximately $3,242 and 54/100, and whereas outstanding village taxes, second 2022-23 installment, levied upon this parcel will be reduced by the specific reduction of $3,242 and 54/100. Now therefore be resolved, the Village Board of Trustees authorizes the settlement of these proceedings to adjust the Village of Pleasantville's 2022 assessment of this tax parcel as follows. Year 2022 assessment $95,450, revised assessment $63,000, reduction of $32,450 for the taxable year 2023, a tax refund reduction of $3,242.54. Be it further resolved that the village administration and Keenan Bean PC, sorry, some of this is blocked by my Zoom window. PC for the Village of Pleasantville are hereby authorized to take the steps necessary to something term to effectuate these terms, including execution and entry of a consent judgment.
Is there a second? Second. With the advice of counsel, seems reasonable. Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Michael, 311.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the cabaret license application from Cliff Mascarenas, the Prime Stakeout, for a cabaret license at 68 Wheeler Avenue.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. And back to you, Paul, 312.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby waives the 30-day requirement to local municipalities for a liquor license application by Cliff Mascarenas of 68 Wheeler Avenue to the New York State Liquor Authority pending the approval of the village cabaret license.
Is there a second?
Second.
So I believe the Prime Stakeout is operating under a temporary license, and this would establish a permanent.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. That's the last of our regular agenda items. Any new business or comments from the public on some matter other than the one we're about to take up in work session, which is outdoor dining? They see none. With that, is there a motion to adjourn and return to work session? Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion approved. Good evening. Thank you for your attention. Sunday, big day. show up for our Ragamuffin Parade, gather at noon, parade at 12:30 down in Memorial Plaza. 4 to 6, stand outside and the candy crawl will make its way around the town. And then be reminded that on November 11th, we will have a ceremony honoring Veterans Day at 11 a.m. at the Gazebo. Last thing I wanted to comment, a bunch of folks have been interested in engaging all of us on the matter of development of the village. We mentioned the last time, and we're going to be sending out a email blast shortly, that we scheduled a town hall meeting to take place at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, November 16. So we're going to post that. I believe in the end, we're going to end up at the high school in the auditorium. Do you all agree that that's helpful? Not sure how many people want to attend. This room is limited in scale.
Yeah.
I think the auditorium is way bigger than it needs, but than we are likely to need, but a comfortable environment for folks. So
Good for spacing too.
yeah, right.
People who might feel nervous about that.
And so we'll have more to say about how we're going to run that in the coming days, but you can mark your calendars for Wednesday, November 16, if that's a matter of interest to you. Either attend in person at the auditorium at Pleasantville High School, or we're have to work out the tech details as we're guests in their building, but we are intending also to broadcast it via Zoom. So. All right, thank you all and good night. We will return to work session. So the item remaining on the work session was follow-up discussion about outdoor dining. Anybody who has a comment, feel free to come up closer. So
Mind if I say a few words?
not at all, please,
Okay.
frame it.
Sure. So I will share my screen here. Well, thank you for being here, and I had quite a week, quite a 10 days really. I spent the last week or so asking everybody that I saw at school pickup and asking everyone I saw on the girls' soccer sidelines. By the way, we beat Briarcliff today. Congrats. Asking everyone that I saw what their opinion about outdoor dining on Wheeler. And, you know, when I framed it to people, I just wanted their opinion. And I said, the board has a decision to make and there's not full consensus. And what do you think? And so I learned a lot this week in talking to about 40 people in person. And just put together a couple slides of my own thoughts. We've learned a lot from the pandemic. I'm in the world of education, and we're always talking about which things we're going to take forward from what we learned in the pandemic in our educational lives, in our pedagogy. And so in politics and in civic life, we're doing that too. And a lot of things are not going back to the way they were. And we're trying to take the best of what's changed. So just a few examples: work schedules, commuting patterns, public health measures, and outdoor spaces. I note in our village, we made some emergency measures, mostly before I joined the board, but then we've also made some longer term changes that are based on changing human behavior during the pandemic. So to the idea that, you know, if we made a change because of the pandemic, it shouldn't necessarily last. I think in the case of changing the entire parking structure of Memorial Plaza based on changing commuter behavior, that's a change that was based on pandemic behavior that we are continuing. I had a moment last Saturday watching all of these families playing board games on the ground, protected by barriers. It was 4:30 p.m. Saturday, October 15th, and snapped this photo just to get a sense of what I was hearing from talking to people around town about the way they were using outdoor spaces. Now, this is obviously not an ideal situation. It's an improvised situation, but it got me thinking about what could be for these folks. Then this week we received letters from about 20 households in support of outdoor dining on Wheeler to the village government. And this was in part because I told people that I was talking to, if you have an opinion, put it on public record, and then it matters, and that it's a part of our public consideration. And so apparently a lot of them did. Another point that I kept thinking of this week was that the space is already effectively being used as public seating. And so instead of that being kind of accidental the way it's developed, and it's not only people from, who are just passing by, but the use of takeout. I talked to the Pleasantville Pizza manager this week, and he was talking about what a nice partnership it is where people get a pizza from his place and walk across the street and have a place to eat it if the table right in front of his is full. People from the Black Cow and Sundance as well. So one idea for discussion, and this is of course just a discussion for as far as I'm concerned, I'm only one person here, but would be to keep the seating and to designate it as public, to improve its aesthetics, possibly to extend it to include Sundance. I haven't been able to talk to their manager in person yet, but I have talked to other employees at Sundance, so hopefully that conversation can happen soon. Add village-sponsored tables and workout maintenance and sanitation arrangements. Now that may sound like a lot, but we've made a lot of other big changes to our village center in the last few months. So final slide, as I'm just going through what are the opportunities potentially here, and then what are the challenges. Here's the one that I see, and then I'm curious to hear what my fellow board members and members of the public think. Outdoor seating is inclusive of immune compromised and families who have little toddlers who want to run around and not be cooped up inside. There's a clear demand that's been demonstrated for outdoor community spaces in our village. Some designation of public seating helps direct takeout customers. I've watched often people from the Black Cow or Sundance sitting at the table service tables for Fat Root and at 11 a.m. and it gets a little awkward when they're opening for business, things like that. I think if there's some improved aesthetics, we could really increase the attractiveness of Lower Wheeler as a civic space where it already is a center of with gravitational pull for pedestrians. There is currently plenty of parking in Memorial Plaza, and yes, this is a challenge to changing user behavior. But I'm a 3-day, sometimes 4-day-a-week commuter in the plaza, and there's usually about 50 spaces empty for most of the day. Now on Friday night, no, that's not true, but most of the week that is true. So we obviously have challenges. The big ones I can think of are deliveries, delivery vehicles on Wheeler not having alleys on either side. That is a challenge. DPW snow removal is a challenge in the winter months. The aesthetics have been brought up multiple times, even by people who are in support of more outdoor dining. They've often mentioned, yes, but we would like to see it look different. And the responsibility for upkeep, for maintenance, sanitation in any kind of public-private partnership. So that's how I see it. Like I said, I'm just one person, but one person who's done my best to ask an open-ended question and listen to people over the last 7 to 10 days. So I'm curious for the rest of your thoughts.
So, Eric, in the circumstance of Soul serving alcohol outside, that can, by the license, only be directly in front of their store? Correct. So and theoretically, they or some entity would be required to restrict people from moving elsewhere?
Right, and that's SLA, that's a state liquor authority.
Okay. So that's just one piece of it.
Yeah.
That is, we can't create some space that's up for grabs for anyone.
That has no
Right. So
no
that's just
barrier, no barriers in between.
one thing to say.
No, it is.
And, the other piece, so let me just say a couple things and then please, why don't you guys come closer and say what you think? The owl gizmo is going to do better if you're closer when you talk.
Didn't we used to have chairs that people could bring up here?
Yeah, they're right over there.
Oh, okay. If you
Yeah.
guys want.
People don't like to sit in the front row. As
We do.
So the other, another issue that we've been grappling with, and it's obviously not one that is front and center for most of the users, is the the reality that we did this during the pandemic to try to help folks we could help. And that meant we had a means of doing this in front of Seoul, we had a means of doing it in front of Dolphin, and we had a means of doing it in front of Bella Kitchen. We didn't have a means of doing it in front of Little Mumbai or Foley's. We obviously were balancing a bunch of demands, and I think it's fair to say it was all right-minded, and everybody community-wide, as has been pointed out, was all in to try to help where we can in tough circumstances. One of the issues about ratifying it going forward is the issue of fairness, which is to say, there are some places we can do this and there are some places we can't. And who gets it? We've had a long-standing practice of licensing at very low cost an outdoor dining arrangement for contiguous public property, like, for example, at Kraft in the Old Village, the space in front of Kraft, and the same for all of the restaurants there. And likewise, Miyabi and Fat Root on Jackson Avenue. We are in the somewhat awkward circumstance, thinking ahead to the question of, okay, where wouldn't we be willing to do this? And would we be willing to do it in lots more places if other entities asked? And, certainly one attitude, which maybe is reasonable to say, let's cross that bridge when and if we come to it or somebody else asks. But I can also say, as I think maybe Michael has mentioned, there's some folks out there who say, I get it. My business was not improved by this and maybe modestly harmed by less parking, but I totally get it that it was a right thing to do to help out anybody who could help, and we were all in, but we aren't so sure we'd be all in if it were that way forever. So, those are just things flying around.
Yeah, sorry, Peter.
Rules thing or just?
No, if you could let us know your name and address, just so we know.
Now, 247 Broadway,
Yeah.
Pleasantville. My wife and I, Gina, are here. We've been here for about 6 years. Appreciate the opportunity to
Sure.
speak. So I'm hearing something about parking and concerns about parking. I'm hearing fairness and whether or not doing the right thing during a pandemic should be a fairness rather than, let me not go down to go further into the description, but what's the net gain on parking that would be achieved if the exempting parking was taken away? Like how
So
many?
we're only talking, what, 5 spaces maybe? It's
3.
eh,
It's
So
3.
I guess I'm not just, we're friends with Alan and Frey, I'm not just thinking about there, I'm thinking about the other spots,
So-
larger.
Again, it isn't so much the supply of parking as, the dynamics change during the day, as you can imagine. The morning, the lunch rush, the evening, the weekends.
Sure.
Up there. Just for example, if the Prime Stakeout, the restaurant now at the other end of the village, were to say, and they haven't, hey, Bella Kitchen had this, we want it too, right? That would be a very significant problem for, say, Frank and Joe's Deli, because they depend all lunch hour on people getting in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and the loss of those spaces would be very problematic for them. Whereas over in the case of Bella, because of the different businesses there, that issue was reduced, and there's also, of course, more parking on both sides. So just an example. That's
Sure,
the
sort of
fairness.
the geography, I imagine,
Yeah.
of any given person's situation, so.
Right,
But
right.
net, you would pick up another 3 or 5 spaces, it sounds like.
In
On
front
Wheeler,
of,
yeah.
on Wheeler, it's currently 3, and Bella, it's currently 6.
So 9 all in.
Yeah.
I mean, because at some level, the thought about what's our strategy for parking more cars here, those decisions were made, I think, a long time ago as additional development and pressures on the parking to begin with have occurred.
So, I mean, it's, of course, that's a long story. We've been talking about parking for 30 years.
Of course.
But the interesting thing, further to what Michael already pointed about the changes in patterns is, we have fewer parking problems from the standpoint of supply than we've had in years, in part because of this big supply of parking over at Memorial Plaza that used to be filled up all day long by commuters and now isn't. And, it's come back a bit, but I don't think it's coming back to the way it was. So much as Michael already alluded to, we changed the rules over there. So for example, I don't think it's so much a matter of there isn't any place to park, but what I was downtown twice on Sunday. Soul had music going, was it Sunday or Saturday? I forget, Sunday, I think. At any rate, Wheeler is packed, completely packed. On both sides, every possible space, people waiting to see a backing out light. And I wheeled around to Memorial Plaza Park, right at the end of the railroad, past there I am. So, same story, human nature. You get the idea you want to park really close to your destination. Sure. If you imagine it's possible to do that, you're going to try to make that happen, even though, consciously, if you pulled back the lens and said, well, what would be the easiest way to do this? Go to Memorial Plaza to begin with and walk across. But, that's kind of human nature, and maybe over time,
That might change over time.
people's patterns will change. So
Has making Wheeler completely pedestrian ever been an agenda item, either formally or informally?
Steve Lord was a big proponent. Steve Lord, who used to be on the village board, was a big proponent of that idea, and it's certainly one that appeals to me.
And me too.
A lot of logistical problems with that, but
I see it as well, and that it isn't neither an endorsement nor.
the problem we have, and I either have great insight to this or I'm blinded by my history, probably both. My day job, my office is at 42 Wheeler Avenue, and I have picture windows looking at Sundance, Dolphin, and Soul. So I see this all day long, and over the last many years, have been in my office at all kinds of crazy hours of the day, including most of all work days. So I can tell you that most places that have gone for a pedestrian mall, the celebrated places in Burlington, Vermont, and Pearl Street in Boulder, Colorado, have a rather different dynamic and have a means of supplying stores and making deliveries through the back or through alleys, or at least through some cross streets. In our case, on one side of Wheeler, you're backed up to the railroad tracks. And so I can tell you, Alan would say the same when, CRP sanitation comes to pick up, in that area between 48 Wheeler, the Gordon Parks Foundation, and the barriers, it's everybody stopped for a while, right?
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah, I would say that I'm also a proponent of it, and I do think that there are examples that we can, over the next year or so, start to look at of towns that enforce evening deliveries and find ways to create pedestrian spaces. One of the things that's often cited against it is, people pull up and buy things and pull out, but uniformly you sort of see businesses that have higher pedestrian counts tend to do better anyway. So yes, not everybody will be able to pull up to Sundance Deli and park and leave, but you'll get more people on foot.
Again,
Yeah.
look,
And I'm really just looking to grab myself in
It's
understanding.
always, right, it's always
little bit
worth
of history.
exploring all these alternatives. Another thing that has been at least on the perimeter of the radar screen is, okay, so we've got this so-called 5-minute parking, which is widely disregarded, and at night utterly and completely disregarded. I dare say all of you people who go to Seoul view it as many hours parking, right? It's supposed to be 5 minutes, all hours, all days. But again, there's some victimless crimes that go on in the world. So what if, again, very big expense. What if we widened the sidewalks and reduced the width of the road and didn't have parking on that side, but had wider sidewalks? Then you'd have a rather different dynamic, and it wouldn't have to stick out as far. You'd lose all that 5-minute parking, or maybe some of it. If you look at what we're doing right now on Manville Road, one side of it, the Burns side in the first block is now pretty much taken shape. We are bumping out the sidewalk. The sidewalks are wider to begin with everywhere, bumping out at each of the crosswalks to narrow Manville Road. And it's going to be, I think, a pretty dramatic change for the better, both in terms of the pedestrian safety, but also just the zen of being downtown and the encouragement of people being on foot. So, some of those thoughts could be fed back into into
Really.
Wheeler, I will say that I get UPS and FedEx deliveries frequently during the week, and those guys are frustrated by how hard it is, partly because of how busy it is. The idea of the 5-minute parking was there would be a way for the truck to pull up, whatever. Now it's more complicated. Again, not gonna plan our community entirely around the convenience of delivery guys, but we also can't plan it diminishing the importance of delivery guys, because all these stores and businesses have to get stuff. So,
Well, I imagine many stores benefit from the quick in and out of the
Yeah,
five and the convenience of
Right.
our general, of our general
yeah,
populace.
and if you're going to it, if you're running to a deli to get lunch quickly, you're in a different mindset than if you're coming downtown to have lunch somewhere and sit down. So, I imagine places like Dunkin' Donuts and the Black Cow need, or certainly believe they need, the chance for people to park close, run in, get your coffee and go off to work. If you couldn't park close and you had to park a block away, maybe you go someplace else, whatever. So never say never. And, there are a whole lot of interesting ideas out there. Widening the sidewalks is an interesting idea, but it's really expensive because you gotta move catch basins and telephone poles and all of that.
Is there a deadline for next step, whether that be further discussion, action, resolution?
Well, so we need to extend the outdoor dining, right? We're at the witching hour. So the outdoor dining exists because of this board resolution, and you'll correct me if I veer into the weeds here. I believe that the state liquor authority says bars and are not allowed to serve and sell outside. You can't let somebody buy a drink and go out and drink it on the sidewalk unless you are doing that in a contiguous space that has been ratified by the municipality. Have I got that right?
Correct.
So for example, Foley's County Road, obviously no room to have a bump out in the street to begin with. They have no legal means of selling a drink, and if they allowed people to get a drink and take it outside, they're going to get dinged and ultimately suffer consequences from the state liquor authority. Seoul can sell beer and have people take it outside only to that space in front, in theory, again, whatever. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, right? That's correct. Only to that space, and they are, based on their license, responsible for the safe and reasonable behavior of their patrons there. This is obviously been a huge issue in the city where you have all kinds of density and in many cases residential space above bars, where the life of a bar in the pandemic has been brought outside and the life of the second floor tenant has suffered. So, those things are all flying around.
But
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say the short answer is they've been on 6-month permits and it's up.
Yeah, I
And so,
imagine there was some exemption to allow the
Yeah.
some kind of consumption out in front of.
So, and the circumstance we're in right now, specifically, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, based on what we heard last time, is Vela says they are not going to use this in the winter. Fine with them to take it away, but they would like to have it back in the spring and summer.
So a seasonal kind of approach.
Seoul would like to have it year round. And I believe Dolphin doesn't want it. Right? So, and they're not using it at all. So we're in this odd circumstance where, although kids were playing board games there,
Right.
Dolphin would like it gone.
I thought they were indifferent.
I haven't talked to them directly.
We know what their objection is.
I think his objection at first was it was kind of like a dead area and it didn't aesthetically look good for his.
I mean, he was using it for a while.
Yeah, and it sat empty.
But now-
He took away his seating. He may have a different perspective on it now, but I
So,
guess his
It's
client.
complicated for table service.
Well, so
Yeah.
Michael's suggestion would tack in the opposite direction of this, but at the end of last meeting, there was the thought, okay, at least for the winter, Dolphin and Vela, those barriers can go away as we navigate the question of whether they stay all winter for Seoul, and the question of whether, regardless of what happens, they're revived for the spring and summer. Right? But you're suggesting now to turn the space in front of Dolphin and potentially even in front of Sundance into an extension of this that wouldn't be owned, so to speak, by the stores that are adjacent, but instead be public. And obviously Alan, as he reported last time, though Alan and Freya allow people to sit there all the time. But, come serving of alcohol time, its own space.
Can I just mention one thing? I've generally been supportive of the outdoor seating, but I just wanted to mention one other piece that people might want to think about going forward, which is that we've had this project for a number of years of creating this civic space. And I don't know if you guys have seen the design for it. But basically in the northern half of Memorial Plaza, from sort of the train station going north, would be an area where you would have outdoor seatings and possibility for other kinds of civic things. I'm not saying that in a prescriptive way, just more that that's something that we might want to be thinking about in terms of our sort of long-term plan for the downtown and the way we sort of imagine how this would kind of knit together with that in the long term. I just wanted to mention that.
So anyone want to add to what we said so far?
Yeah, Gina Sedao, Chris is like
Yep.
247 Broadway. So many things. And what Nicole said is just really at the top of my mind. We're in the middle of this huge capital improvement to create a public space. And here we have a public space and we're talking about taking it away, which makes no sense following your comments shortly before about how, COVID is not gone. It's coming back. Numbers are going up. People want to be outside. It doesn't just intuitively doesn't make sense to remove something that's so beneficial for the community that people are making good use of. I'm hearing things about fairness, but when someone says, oh, why do they get it and I don't, just makes me feel like, for the greater good, it helps everybody to have a place for people to sit and enjoy being a member of the community and patronizing not only Soul, but all the places that are available to them on Wheeler. I mean, I go on to Soul on a Friday night, but everyone there is, I'm waiting for my food at Dolphin, I'm getting my food at Sundance or Falafel Taco or Pleasantville Pizza or, Fat Root. People are coming there not only to come to Soul, but that's a place to hang out where they're waiting for their food and the kids are playing games and there's the moms with the strollers and the people with their dogs talking to each other, seeing their neighbors and their friends. That's what our town is about. The idea of taking away a public space when we're in the middle of this huge capital improvement to make a public space, let's just leave it there and let people enjoy it and defer this decision down the road. And no one is saying, oh, in Memorial Plaza, everyone from Starbucks is going to get to go and drink their coffee. No one's going to go to Black Cow anymore. I mean, it's a ridiculous idea that only one, business is going to benefit because it's right in front of them. The whole town benefits. To say that Foley's isn't getting the traffic, Foley's is on a horrible street. You can't park any place to get to Foley's.
Correct.
The fact that you can't walk out of Foley's with the beer. I don't know if that's a valid argument to say that, well, we can't have it in front of Soul because then they get some benefit.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm hearing when we're talking about fairness. I don't subscribe to that. I just think that a public space that's being well used and is a good substitute for until we have that greater capital improvement complete just makes sense to keep. And I don't see the downside to keeping it. And certainly 3 parking spaces for, that are supposed to be 5 minutes each isn't going to make that much of a difference, really.
I agree with most everything you said. I live my life trying to improve the opportunities for folks to navigate in the civic realm. I totally agree. And I have great respect for what Alan and Freya have done in creating this business. All those things are completely true. Thrown into that mix is a piece that is our problem, not necessarily yours, which is not everybody agrees, including some of the other business owners who are like, I don't want to complain. I don't want to get in a fight with my neighbors, but this sucks for me, and so to what degree? Is that a matter of perception? Is it a matter of fact? A lot of people say a lot of things, but there is that piece of it. There's the other piece of it that and again, maybe it's a bridge we cross when we come to it, but how many of these would we agree to, right? Somebody else asks for it. somebody wants it on Marble, somebody else wants it on Washington. There'd be a point at which you say, well, hold it, now we can't really do that. I brought up the example of the restaurant next to Frank and Joe's, where we're taking 4, 5, 6 spaces out of the diagonal spaces would be extraordinarily problematic for a couple of those adjacent businesses. Less so over at Bella. I mean, the thing that made it comparatively easy originally at Dolphin and Soul was that it wasn't on the diagonal parking sign, right? So it wasn't that many spaces, right? So, I mean, I see, and you'll argue with me if you see it differently. I see what goes on at lunchtime on Wheeler Avenue almost every day. And it's difficult. It would be less difficult without the barriers there. That doesn't mean that alone is the reason to remove them, but it is absolutely difficult. It's a choke point.
Can
I think that Peter, I think the word you're using for is it's traffic calming.
Yeah, you say traffic,
but-
it's out, calm.
But I do want to add in before the next the resident speaks, just that I think that one of the really nice ideas that Michael had in his research was to make sure that we sign this as public seating. It's effectively that already, but I think that helps. And all of the concerns all of the concerns you have are good concerns, but they're sort of not to the point of why not do something that's useful that creates an important accommodation for immune compromised people during the winter, and that could be further expanded later. The fairness concerns, we're all better as a village when our businesses are selling more, even if it doesn't affect them equally. In any case, the randomness of where they happen to be located and where, however, the traffic patterns shift over the years always affects businesses differently, and we just do the best that we can.
Right.
In terms of public service, that outdoor space that we have, I personally think it's a public service because at lunchtime, as you say, many people come and sit there and eat and leave their trash there. And I come out and clean it.
I've
and
seen you
never
do it.
complain.
Yes.
I maintain the flowers. I clean up things with my bare hands on the floor, on the sidewalk,
You
on
totally
the
do.
pavement. So I think it is a public service.
It is a public service. It's not a large number of people, but it's a public service. And the zen of it is positive. I totally agree. The choke point is not positive, right?
The light, the timing of the light on Wheeler has gone from maybe, I don't know, 10 seconds to about 3 seconds. Maybe that has something to do with it
Oh
as
my
well.
God, believe me, Rick.
No, the comment I would make about that is that if there are concrete barriers there, that blocks a certain amount of space. If the concrete barriers go away, they're gonna be cars,
It's
there's
gonna
gonna be
be
cars
cars.
parked there. It's gonna be the exact same thing. That has nothing to do with the congestion.
It does have something to do with congestion. I mean.
Congestion is from double parking and a short light.
I absolutely true that can happen and there's congestion at lunch no matter what. It's worse with the barriers than it was before. And nobody knows that better than I do because I have the best view in all of Pleasantville of that. And I've been in that office for 12 years. I don't mean to say, everyone has a different balance about what blessings and curses end up part of the mix. And I don't say this to say what you have is a very positive thing in many ways. It's not positive in every way, right? It's not public space at night. It's a bar, right? But it feels better to take your kids there, which is great. If I had little kids, I would do the same thing. But that's what it is, right? It's not, because you
It's a
have to.
tasting room. We don't serve hard alcohol.
All right, well,
We're not a bar.
I didn't mean to
Yeah.
demean you. I love what you do. Yes.
But I think to Freya's point, so when you say, okay, at 8 PM on Friday, it's a bar, no one's denying that, or it's a tasting room. But at 11 AM on a Tuesday, what is it? They're not-
Mostly empty.
It's not totally empty.
No, people having
And
lunch.
at 8 PM on a Friday night,
It's-
people are eating food from other restaurants in town.
And that's a great thing. It's a great thing. All I'm throwing out there is that there are some problems attached to this. And all the letters we've gotten perfectly understandably, letters I myself could have written if I didn't own these other problems. pointing out all the good things about it, and there are lots of good things. There are some problems. And, you know, it would fall to us when the moment arrives that someone says, well, I want it too, in a location that is too problematic.
But isn't that,
What
I
is the
mean,
time?
you could say like, I really want a corner restaurant, or I really want, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure that the fairness
What do you
issues.
mean by that?
Well, I'm saying that there are, you know-
Particularities of every location.
yeah, every
Absolutely.
location has certain advantages and
And
disadvantages.
that's why
like,
people
so-
rent them.
Right, so I'm not sure that that fairness issue is something that we can necessarily legislate. Or,
No,
you know,
we can't, which is
I
we
mean-
have to be fair, right?
right, but if we're saying like,
But-
nobody can benefit from the natural
Right.
advantages to their particular.
This isn't a
location.
natural advantage.
It is in some respects.
Why is that a natural advantage? Why is Bella's natural advantage any different from
I think
the Prime
because,
Stakeout or Paulie's on Marble Ave?
well, the way I see it, and I don't know if it's the same as you, Nicole, is
Yeah.
that what's emerged is a cluster of successful food and drink locations all on Lower Wheeler, where there are 7 or is it 8 places where you can eat or drink something that are all there. And from the user experience, so when someone sits at the table in front of Pleasantville Pizza, they don't know who provided the table, whether it's permitted, why it's there, who cleans it up. When they sit at Falafel Tacos table, they don't think about all those things. And I don't think they think about those things at the other tables either.
So
I
again,
think,
I
and the
mean, to
Pleasantville
some
Pizza
extent,
manager cleans his
the
table.
Pleasantville, the falafel taco tables are virtually all falafel taco patrons, and Pleasantville pizza tables maybe a little less so. Obviously, Pub Street are table service to their table, so that's very much restricted, although in the morning you see people sitting there having coffee, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. It's been a good thing, and nobody's been angsty about it, right?
But I think that, yes, the user experience or just the experience of living in the town and meeting all these places is that it feels like a district has emerged. That is an outdoor dining cluster that people, when they found out it might go away, they came to Village Hall on Monday night at 9 o'clock because they didn't want it to go away. And that's I think part of what you're trying to say about the particularities of the location,
Mhm.
that it's the sort of energy that towns are trying to generate.
Totally.
Well, there's a reason
Yeah.
that they're not practical, maybe, but there's a reason why Steve Lord had this vision of Wheeler as a pedestrian zone. It's, you know, because as some, you know, his wife is German, he spent a lot of time in Europe, like, you know, he can like, in a moment, sort of sum it up as this is where the pedestrian zone would be, right? And so I think it's not accidental that it's happened where it has. Like,
Yeah, no, our village is yearning for a center. And we don't have a village square. We don't have a park at the center of the village with due respect to the 3 benches at Nona Square. You know, and it's something that we want and we need, but I think that this, as much as anything, shows that that there really is the craving for that, the ability for us to sort of gather in non-retail spaces outdoors that are at the center of the village.
How has additional feedback from village residents been solicited, either in a formal or informal manner?
Just anyone who pays attention to our agenda. We
So
haven't
the
reached out.
announcement of,
Right.
of this meeting,
Informal.
and you took an informal poll.
Right.
I
Did
mean,
anyone else take any informal polls, or just curious?
No, I don't
I
think so.
mean, this is not a matter that we've engaged the entire village on. We could, but that gets complicated.
No,
So, look, I can tell you,
we've only gone to the level of large scale survey.
I mean, as you might
Like the
imagine,
pool and things like that.
every issue that prevails, you know, stakeholders are in different places.
Mhm.
Some issue arises, someone doesn't care. It doesn't matter to them. In other cases, it's, you know, one person's solution to a problem is another person's crisis. So, and, you know, this is clearly in the circumstance where people who don't patronize that probably don't care. Maybe they trend towards get rid of it because it's kind of in the way. I've heard that from a bunch of people. Okay, pandemic is mostly eased. I get it. People are perfectly happy to go into these places. Get rid of it. That's the voice of someone who doesn't use it, right? Someone who does use it is saying all the things that have been said tonight. This is great. It's an opportunity to be outside, even in the dead of winter, if you're concerned about COVID.
I mean, that's kind of what the model that's evolved. I mean, this has been happening in. Certainly, if anyone's gone in and out of the city.
I mean, it's a five-star fight.
Different budgets, different milieu.
It's a five-star fight in the city now about it, and I don't know how it's gonna work out. I will say, our concrete barriers are ugly, but in the city, you know, between you and a 50-mile-an-hour taxi cab is a piece of plywood, right?
I'll take ugly in that particular case.
I guarantee you, if you ask the Pleasantville High School Art Department to come and beautify them, Greg Nemick and his team would be more than happy to get, the honor art students out there and make it beautiful.
The only reason we didn't was we didn't want to upset DPW or anybody.
I didn't have plans on top. I didn't do that.
I can tell you,
To understand the downside of keeping it, because the traffic issue to what's your name again? Alan. Sorry. Brain freeze. Alan's point, if the barriers aren't there, there's gonna be cars there. There's still gonna be the people who are impatient and feel the need to double park because they're just inconsiderate. We're never gonna get rid of the inconsiderate people who
never
choose
gonna
to
get rid of.
double park.
I personally think, based on long observation of that it's harder than it was. Is it light years different? No, it's harder than it was. Would
Could it be
you
partly because
disagree with me, Gas?
I'd say the good definitely outweighs. the bad.
I get that. I understand that. But it definitely is harder.
Beyond the traffic problems that you talked about, what are the other objections to keeping it there?
So one question is, and Vela and Sol and Dolphin have answered for themselves, which is, Vela said, I'm not using this in the winter. Be happy to have it gone. Probably good to have it gone, because then people can park in front of my restaurant, right? He would like to have it back in the spring. Dolphin appears agnostic at best or opposed at worst to having it at all. Sol would like to have it year round. So it does seem to me, Michael's idea of actually expanding this, I think would require more consideration of this and discussion with the adjacent shore owners and all of that to be not a realistic thing to do right now.
Right.
So I would say it's hard to argue we shouldn't, at least for the moment, remove the barriers at Vela and at Dolphin. Do you disagree with me?
I would disagree. I would say we would definitely remove them at Vela, but I think we should consider before we remove them at Dolphin, because that's contiguous, right?
Okay, but consider what?
Consider leaving them and labeling the whole thing as public space.
But
It's one.
Yeah, I think there's the state liquor authority issue, if we were to do that in an immediate way, is that right? If we were
right,
to-
there can be no, and Alan and Freddie, you'll tell me, but there can be no overt suggestion that you can be anywhere with a beer in your hand except in the section right in front of Sol.
Correct, and
Yeah.
furthermore, it can't be in our space with the Dolphin cocktail in your hand, or in Dolphin space with our beer.
And I assume that is not happening, is it?
Not anymore.
It was a fun.
Was it?
Yeah, but it doesn't. That wouldn't affect what people do with other kinds of food. That's just the liquor issue, right?
So,
Right, but I mean, certainly in the evening hours, the very positive synergistic purchase of takeout fruit from other places, things that Alan and Freddie bring in, all that's great, but that's all for people who are buying beer and they're having a beer and food.
So-
That's what's going on.
So one solution for tonight, potentially,
Yes,
would be what you said, that to push the barriers up so that they're only sold. And then by April 1st, let's say, our snow removal date, right, by April 1st, we as a board will have further deliberated some vision for what we're going to do on April 1st.
what do people think about that?
Yeah, I mean, on
Paul,
one hand, I think that it benefits the overall, coming from the business side, being a part of the Chamber of Commerce, I think that it just benefits all the businesses to have it there right now. I mean, I myself use it all the time. I'll go in with my family. I'll buy a beer you know, and then my kids will be there, we'll get pizza, or, you know, my son will want sushi or something, my daughter wants pizza, so now we've got all that. And then, you know, I'll get a beer.
You've created an expensive taste
Yeah.
in children this young.
So, but the idea that I have, and I've always congratulated Fran and Alan about having that concept that they allow other businesses to bring their stuff there. We don't have anything like that right now. And at the end of the day, you know, I completely understand that there are some issues that arise, like, you know, obviously the snow plowing and all that, but I think overall, the amount of benefit it brings, it's definitely gonna be more than the way if it snows here and there a couple days. Or if it's tighter, I mean, and I do think that people will continue to park there. People already pull out there and they have cars there anyway, so I think at this time, without a doubt, it's a good spot to have. I do think that the Washington Avenue location definitely would remove that. If he doesn't want it, I think it creates more parking there for the other businesses there that get more traffic, that get more people that need to park. And then we revisit this in the future, because I do think until we actually get a place, this is something that we're gonna have to discuss and see seasonally how that goes. I am concerned though of the precedent that we will set as to other businesses on Wheeler per se, if they want to start doing this now, and they say, well, what can we get a spot to down there? But, you know, that's a battle for the future, I think, that we'll have to deal with, but I do think where we are right now, I'm in full support of it being there. And we'll revisit this again in April and see where it comes up. I mean, I think if it can help one business, but helps the business around it, I think it's enough. I think the talk of fairness, you know, we'll see at that point, but if no one's applying for it, you know, we'll kind of have to figure that out and rule that out, because it will get a bit challenging if, you know, we come back and let's say it comes April 1st, and now we want to keep this spot, but Bella's like, well, I want the spots back now. So, you know, we'd have to assess the whole situation again. All right, does the village want to have, let's say, Bella, which is really just benefiting Bella there, because that's just a straight up just Bella spot. So is that really fair? I don't think that's fair. Here, if it's more, you know, if it continues to be a more universal spot, I think then I'm for it.
Does Vela sell your beer?
I think there's a common good aspect as well, too, in terms of the overall kind of overflow effect on the village, you know? I mean, look, there are relatively few silver linings that came out of the pandemic, and this is actually one, you know? And I think for me, even in the case of Bella, like, I think that there are ways in which it can benefit other businesses, just because of the overall impression that it creates of Pleasantville and the desirability that it creates of people, you know, drawing people here. So, but I think strategy wise, what Paul proposes makes sense. You know, if the restaurants are not interested in having it over the winter, logistically, Eric, is it complicated if we remove some of the barriers and want to put them back?
I mean,
No.
clearly, we should remove the ones in front of Bella for the winter. He's not going to use them, and there are no tables there.
Yeah,
It's just blocking parking
Right.
spaces, right?
yes.
And that will help.
So that
And
much
the
we
bookstore
we
and
got
Glass,
that far,
the
right?
bookstore and Glass
Glass
Onion are
Onion.
places that people go in and linger.
Or across the
You know,
street.
Well, and the
chocolate
holiday
shop,
parking, you know,
all that
the
stuff. Yeah.
bookstore and Glass Onion depend heavily, I think, on the holidays.
Yeah, yeah.
I
All
think
right, so
I
that's,
think it's some-
that's a definite.
So we got that far. Anyone disagree with that? Look at that. We have unanimity. It's beautiful. All right. So now the question is that there clearly is a sense to leave Seoul for the winter.
Yeah.
And the remaining question is dolphins, right? So, I mean, one interesting question would be what they think,
Yes, that would be.
which we can certainly find out. And it's one thing to say what they think about just having them there. And it would be another thing to say what they would think about your idea, which is
Having tables there.
we actually put tables and chairs there, and encourage other people to be in front of their store, doing something else, right?
Well, and the question too is to Seoul, are you okay with having that responsibility? Now you're, you know, patrolling your
I don't
clients.
think they can be responsible for that.
Well, but if people are buying beers and let's say, you know, they're out there, people will want to be like, oh, there's this other space. So that just adds a bit more responsibility to you. And then is that
We already,
okay?
we already have been patrolling it throughout the pandemic, and there are a number of people in town who don't like me very much because I let them wander off with beers and stuff.
So if you're okay with that, I mean, that's,
It's there's,
I'm fine with having that spot extra as well, but as, you know, obviously the responsibility falls on you to patrol that they're not taking your,
but. I mean. It gets complicated. It goes, part of the problem is the pattern here, certainly the pattern in the city. And I think the pattern in Westchester is these things got created in streets in front of restaurants, and they were an extension of that
Right.
restaurant. They didn't get created as a free-for-all, anybody can be there. That happens a little bit during the day, but it doesn't feel that way at night. And I'm guessing Dolphin isn't gonna want, and we'll ask, if there are tables outside their restaurant on a unexpectedly balmy winter night, people are bringing their mixed drinks outside, right? That's within Dolphin's right, even if they're not actively trying to promote this outdoor thing. So it just it gets complicated. You would certainly get. I don't know what they would say.
They don't really have a waiting area, so. I mean, there already are people spilling out of their.
Yeah, but they're not drinking, a bourbon and soda, right?
Currently, there are no tables out there, so I'm
Haven't been
suggesting
for weeks.
that part of the plan is for the town to put their own tables there, because that I think would probably be potentially problematic, because then people would potentially wander over there from Seoul and
Right.
be a little bit
Right,
more of
you're gonna
it.
fill them up on trivia, right?
So, that I think.
I mean, that
that's-
creates another friction point, right? We don't need any more friction points. Our goal is to have fewer, right?
Correct.
So maybe in the category of baby steps, the thrust of this discussion is to remove the ones in front of Dolphin, to remove the ones in front of Vela, and never say never. And maybe they come back, maybe they don't. That's a discussion we can have over the winter, and leave the ones in front of you guys.
And in the sense of the ones in front of Dolphin, it's really just pushing the one barrier.
Yeah.
5
Yeah,
feet.
I don't want to speak for Dolphin, but I would figure that their main interest is in being able to do table service out there, because that's the type of place they are, and that's how they make their money.
Right.
If they're not waiting on a table. I don't know that they can, it seems like they don't consider it worth their time.
Yeah, and it's probably, especially when the weather gets a little off, right? I mean, it's interesting to see what goes on, say, at Hub Street, which has its own property. And, now that the weather's gotten colder, it's much less active out there, but there are still a bunch of people who prefer to eat outside just because of the COVID concerns. I might be among them. Who are willing to eat outside, even though a lot of people would say it's too cold, right? And that likely is the case for you guys as well, right?
Yeah.
But it's a different thing to sort of pop up a different business in front of somebody else's restaurant.
Right.
So that would be a discussion.
Are you guys happy with that arrangement, if that's what we do for the winter? Yes. Yeah. But I do think we should revisit in the spring,
I mean, I think we have to be revisiting it before the spring, so that by spring we have a plan.
Right.
And, part of that is, Michael has proposed expanding the thing. And one might think differently about that. If we found that Dolphin and Sundance said, have at it, that'd be great.
Right.
As opposed to Dolphin saying, don't you dare, or Sundance saying, we like the idea, but we're worried that it will be too hard.
Sure.
And as a 20-year resident of Linden Abbey, I wrote in this afternoon, I just want to say, thank you for your thoughtfulness in making these decisions. We, being a part of a community that supports its local businesses and the community is just what keeps people here. So thank you.
And I don't want anyone to think I don't sympathize with all this. I totally do. It's just, I happen to be the guy, partly because I'm the mayor and partly because I work downtown every day, that I get the people in my ears saying, so that's my life, right? I asked for it.
Has the light shortened though on Wheeler?
Well,
I think so.
If only the traffic gods could tell us that. We've been at this for a while, right?
Yeah,
So, and I mean, it gets more complicated than that. I mean, like Saturday morning, you notice it particularly. All these people downtown for the farm market, whatever, for stopping up. And sometimes only 3 cars get out from Wheeler before the light changes again. It seems crazy. And yet, you know, we've also got the chorus of folks who say we need more throughput on Bedford because it gets backed up so of course this is our curse, having these problems that I'm like, oh, that person just pressed for the walk signal and then they had a moment to cross before it went to the walk signal. And now we're going to 15 seconds when all traffic is stopped and no one has crossed.
But I want to say a very positive thing here, which is that when you go back and read the master plan, right, from 90, whatever, one of the chief goals is to attract more business development to the central business district. And so the things we're talking about right now are how to manage all of the excitement and energy and cars and people and pedestrians and businesses. And that's wonderful. And the farmers market is a big part of that.
It is.
These businesses are a big part of that.
Way better than the alternative problem.
Absolutely, it's better than the alternative problem. And so I think these are trade-offs that we're talking through, and sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it takes multiple meetings, but I think we're navigating very good problems.
They're good problems to have. I mean, and you understand.
Just a question, for us, amateurs,
We're all amateurs.
No professionals up here.
figurative amateurs.
Sorry.
But where will this be further explored? In these general sessions, in a planning committee, in a zoning committee?
It's not planning and zoning, it's a village board decision. I mean, we might engage planning about further to what Michael was saying, further what I said about, could we widen the sidewalks? Are these bump outs that we've created on Manville imaginable for some similar circumstance on Wheeler? Is there a way to create a more sort of welcoming and capacious pedestrian experience on one side or the other? It gets expensive to do that, but you got to start with a vision, not with resources, right? So,
Are you,
So in this form.
Yeah.
are you signing up for the village emails on the
I
website?
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
be
we'll
careful. You're
come
in
back
a
to this
committee.
issue.
But we've had even the last few months, we've had proposals from residents that got on our work session agenda, and then changes were made in town based on something that one person brought up to us. So it's a small village, and as the mayor likes to say, when you pull is it the tiller of a
the
boat?
tiller, yes.
When you pull the tiller, the boat moves,
That's right.
which is the great thing about local small town government.
Which proves
Sometimes
that
you
my.
don't, it moves anyway.
And the civic space will hopefully happen someday, that would be
And
great.
the next piece about that is people have already said it, could I buy beer in the civic space?
If Phil Myrick were in charge, you guys know who Phil Myrick is? You would. Remember there
people
was gonna be
prioritize.
glue fun with the outdoor ice skating?
Yes,
Remember?
yeah. Well, look, I mean, the best thing of all about this village is that it's always sort of operated above its weight class. We do all kinds of things and have all kinds of people doing all kinds of interesting stuff, interesting businesses, interesting professionals, interesting sports activities, schools, whatever. It's really the life of a community way bigger than ours. I mean, I see this every year at the music festival. Like the bands say, how big is this town? Like 75? Are you kidding? Like, it's a great thing, but it's hard because our visions are bigger than our capacity to deliver sometimes, but we keep surprising ourselves in lots of ways, but not in every way. So.
We'll welcome you back to meetings.
Yeah,
Look forward to it.
thanks
It's
for
always
hanging out.
exciting.
It was a bit of a slog.
And then we're gonna have a draconian war on double partners. You see the one today? I took a picture of it from my office. It turns out, you may not know this, but if you turn on the blinkers, the flashers, that means you get out of jail free for almost any infraction. Because it means, honestly, what does it mean? It means you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, right? That's what it means. But you're essentially saying, I know I shouldn't do this, but it won't be long.
Just give me a minute, give me a minute.
But it was long today. You probably didn't see it.
I
There
don't
was,
know that one.
there was a double parked right in front of Sundance. It was just lucky that the car in front of Sundance, they were totally blocked in. It was there for like 7 minutes. I should be making a living instead of counting time on that car.
People do that in the exit.
Yeah, that's our
parking lot.
personal favorite, the extra
Stop
parking,
right
they
there.
just stop right there, get into their car, walk down the
Yes.
block.
Yeah, well, and then
Oh, wow.
the people who park right in front of the fish store, sad loss. With their bumper, 6 inches impinging upon the exit from the parking lot, and you have to go way out. I had to make a K turn to turn left on Wheeler.
Peter, I've got to jump on another Zoom call, so
Lauren, you come on.
thank you all.
To go on longer than. That can't be true.
Yeah, I gotta
Yes.
jump on too.
That's right. To add, one thing, I really enjoyed the conversation here. My name is Jack Tobin, I live on Sarles Lane, about what could be in the village, despite whatever hurdles there might be. That's an excellent conversation to have, but in the near term, this is the right decision, I think. And I don't know if the proprietors are interested, but if they had any designs on making the space a little more winterized, I certainly would be in support of that. So I just
Well,
wanted to
you
add
had
that point.
way back when, Alan, talked about it,
I know Vela had those
Yeah.
greenhouse things.
which they have since given away, I think. So you're not headed in that direction.
No.
Are you still musing in your dream world about a roof thing?
Yeah, but that's gonna have a lot to do with it.
I've noticed that about him.
Money.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Thank
Thank you for your
So
endurance.
now we're gonna need you all when we start talking about our civic space, because we get some flack about the idea of that.
Yeah.
And
We'll be
that's,
here.
all right,
All for it. All for it.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.